Now it's time for In My Experience, and I've been joined by Syed Kamall, who is the MEP for London, a post he's held since 2013, also chairman of the European Conservatives and Reformists Group, that's the Conservative grouping in the European Parliament. Syed, welcome. What decided you to become a politician in the first place? You'd been a businessman before.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always been interested in politics, and the thing about politics is it's such a lottery that I know some people do go into politics and say, that's all I want to do is be an elected politician. Yes. But I think you have to have a career, partly because you may never get elected, but also because it gives you another perspective on life. You know, when I got elected in 2005 and into the European Parliament, and I started doing legislation on some areas of technology, what I was shocked about was actually just how many people were legislating but didn't really understand what they were legislating on. And I think it helps, having worked outside first, in whatever field, it helps, I think, it helps make you a better legislator.
Now, at one stage you were hoping to be named the Conservative candidate for London. Many of us would like to see you there, not only because you're a very able politician, but also because we then would have had two Muslim sons of bus drivers competing for the mayorship. So let's talk a little bit about your background. You have a terribly cultured voice, but your parents were immigrants, what, in the 50s?
Yeah,
from Guyana?
My dad came in Guyana, or some Guyanese say Guyana, in 1950s, and then my mother came in 1964. And I was born and brought up in London.
And he worked on buses and trains, as I understand, because what I'm angling for is you to tell a story about the Flying Scotsman.
Of course, yeah, no, of course I can tell you that story. When my father came here, he initially worked on the railways, and in those days it was towards the end of the British Rail, and he said it was, whereas in the older days I think there was very much a much bigger, stronger hierarchy. He said he had several jobs. He was a guard at one time. I think one of his early jobs was as a fireman, and he said he was a fireman on some of the big trains. And he said he'd been on the Mallard and he'd been on the Flying Scotsman. But in those days they had lost their sort of sheen, as it were.
Yes.
Or, they were no longer. People didn't see them in the sort of same nostalgic way that we look back at them now. And they're just ordinary trains in service. And he said he worked on, and he told me about the fact that he worked on what was the old LNER. Of course, it was, I think, Eastern Region of British Rail by then. I remember he had a LNER stopwatch, and when British Rail ran out of steam, he transferred across to the buses and was a bus driver. And so, as you say, just like Sadiq Khan, I am the son of a London bus driver. Just like Sajid Javid, the Secretary of State. He was also the son of a bus driver. And so when I tell my story and try to inspire kids, I also make it clear that I'm not the only one who came from this sort of background.
Yes.
In fact, I quite often make the joke that you wait ages for the son of a London bus driver, and then three come along at once. But I think it's important, especially when I'm going to schools and youth clubs and trying to inspire young kids to break barriers and to achieve the most from their potential.